But first and foremost, without further ado, we're bringing on Stanley Roberts, who is the host of Caught Misbehaving.
Misbehaving.
Or no, it's with a G. I got that wrong at first. But yes.
I like the misbehaving. Hi, Stanley. How's it going?
I'm a little confused.
Uh-oh.
Because it's 100 degrees in Santa Cruz, and it's 100 degrees in Phoenix.
It's amazing, isn't it?
How does that work?
It doesn't.
Well, it's the end of the world, I tell you. The end of the world.
I've been saying that since I don't know, 3 weeks now. Yeah. Jeez, I'm telling you, when's the apocalypse coming? That's what I've been saying.
Hey, you know, as long as they bring some food and wine, I'm ready for the apocalypse.
Right? So how are you, Stanley?
Right. I'm doing okay. How are you?
I'm great. Glad to have you on the show. I know Josh is super excited.
Absolutely.
That's really great to be in beautiful Santa Cruz, which ironically, I started my career in working in Santa Cruz.
Did you?
Really?
Yes, I did.
Oh, wow. Where did you start it at?
Started at KCBA, Fox 35.
Oh, wow.
And what'd they have you doing there?
Well, when I first started, I started off by sweeping floors and changing light bulbs and doing a studio cam. But I taught myself how to edit and to shoot. And my first big story was, ready for this? UC Santa Cruz protests for the Persian Gulf War.
So that must have been back in 19...
Hey, we don't use dates. We're not trying to...
That was back in my time.
That was 3 days ago.
That was, way before Josh was born.
Way before my existence.
Not even a thought in your mama's tummy there.
So, Stanley, give us a little background about yourself.
Well, most people know me, and I have done some segments in Santa Cruz with the down near the beach and boardwalk where people were, the surfers and climbing over a fence that said "Don't climb over." I've done stuff with CHP in Santa Cruz, so I covered Santa Cruz all the way to Napa, and even Sacramento and Fairfield sometimes, doing a segment when I was in the Bay Area called "People Behaving Badly."
Yeah.
And so it got to the point where whenever I went, people were like, well, who's behaving badly? I mean, I'm in church one day. I'm at a funeral. Well, who's behaving badly? And I go, well, apparently not this guy.
Because I'm here.
He's a little busy. But I tell people that if you can see me, then you're not the target.
Oh, that's good.
The target is usually the person who doesn't see me.
Oh.
So my job was to go out and catch people. Someone called it slipping.
Did you have to get trained for that? I mean, that's almost like investigative techniques, right? Like your ninja type.
When you grow up in Camden, you train for everything. Camden is training from the very beginning. And then I lived in LA for 10 years. So you learn everything and you see everything. Yeah. And observation skills are something that some people have and some people don't have. But the ability to know what someone's going to do before they do it is a kind of a gift in itself.
So what made you realize, like you said, you started off working as a first as an intern, essentially, then a photographer. What made you realize that catching people slipping was your career path?
Well, ironically, it started way before I even started doing the segment. When I worked at KCBA in Salinas, I rode out with the Highway Patrol. There was a trooper there named Mike Starr. And we went out and we drove around in a trooper cruiser, and he was targeting the trucks that move all the food around, and they were doing inspections of them.
Yeah.
And it turns out that all the trucks that they inspected either didn't have brake fluid, didn't have brakes at all, the driver wasn't licensed.
Wow.
And these trucks were on the road doing 60, 70 miles an hour, no brake fluid in the rear brakes. So those trucks are a disaster waiting to happen. And he cited a bunch of trucks. That was my very first interaction with CHP, I guess, before I even got to crime. And so I ended up I went to LA, which I shot for Cops, and I shot for LAPD, the TV series. So I got my chops wet doing that stuff as well. And then I ended up in I ended up in San Francisco. Now, here's where it gets interesting. So I started off at NBC as a photographer, satellite truck operator, you name it. I did all that stuff, in the trenches.
Yeah.
And then they switched they were sold to Young Broadcasting, and they decided to save money by creating something called a VJ program. VJ is short for video journalist. So my job was to go out and become a reporter/photographer. So I had to tell the stories and shoot them myself. And they wanted me to do something called point of view, which is you go out and you show it, but you don't show your face. You just kind of, hey, this is a fire. This is a fire truck. This is, this is everybody that's displaced, blah, blah, blah. And I came back and said, look, can I try something a little different? Can I go out and show people doing things they shouldn't be doing? And for lack of a better name, can I call it people behaving badly? And the news director at the time said, you know what? Go give it a shot, see what happens. And then, but we can't, I'm not sure we can use the name. It might be trademarked or something. And I said, okay. So I went out and did it. Phones rang off the hook. Long story short, they told me to keep doing it. So I did that and did reporters' stories and did satellite truck and did everything else all at the same time. And then as it progressed, it became more and more. And then I honed my skills in becoming a better observer of what people are doing. And when I first started, it upset the police departments because they thought I was calling them out for not doing their job, like drug dealing.
Right.
People urinating in public. And I got a phone call from the PIO from San Francisco and says, what the heck are you doing? He used a little bit harsher language.
Of course.
And I said, I'm not trying to make you guys look bad. I'm just showing what's going on in the world. So then that's where it all came about.
Did you actually start working with them?
That's the short story.
Did you start working with them a little
bit?
Yeah.
Well, they figured if you can't beat them,
right. That's exactly what I'm thinking. Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
Yes. So that's how it all started. Go ahead.
So, what is one of the biggest challenges for you entering the broadcast media world?
Well, one of the biggest challenges for me was, and I'm not trying to put this out there to start anybody getting upset, but one of the biggest challenges I had was racism. As being a journalist of color, no matter where I went, the problem was the same. There was very little respect for what you did, and as a matter of fact, you were told that you don't have respect. You need to respect me, but they didn't respect me. And I would tell them, I said, respect is something you earn, not something you buy at the store. So I had cases where my equipment was sabotaged, where someone unscrewed the satellite dish at one station I worked for, so that if I drove away with it, the dish would come flying off, a microwave dish, not satellite dish.
Wow.
The equipment was, like, a part of it would be missing when I go do my job. And then they would say, well, why didn't you check it before you left? I'm like, because why would it be missing? Should always be there.
Yeah.
So what did you do to counteract that?
I just have to, I gave speeches at schools to kids. And I tell them that no matter how many obstacles someone put in front of you, you just got to run backwards and run further and jump it and just keep moving. And I couldn't let those things keep me from moving forward. And even to this day, I still have issues that come up. And I've been called the N-word, from one group, they're like, I'm Uncle Tom. The other group, I'm a sellout. The other group, I'm the N-word. So I'm really like in this little bubble where I just have to be myself.
Yeah.
From what it sounds like, you might be offending all these different parties. But the thing is, if you are upsetting multiple demographics, then you're doing something right.
Well, that's what they say.
Well, that's what people say. But for me, it's just to get out there and show what's going on and do it without being biased. In other words, I don't tell you not to do it. If you listen to my stories, I never say don't do it. What I tell you is that if you do it, there are consequences, and the consequences are X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
It could be a ticket, it could be injury, it could be any of those things. But then people look at it like, how dare you tell me what to do? And I love this part when they go, I bet you think you're better than everybody else. I'm like, no, I'm not better than anybody else at all. And, well, you think you're perfect, don't you? No, I don't think I'm perfect at all.
Tell us more about how you check your bias, because I'm actually in the newsroom one day a week, so I feel like I could learn a lot from you here.
Well, everybody has some kind of. I have a friend of mine who writes. He's a BART police officer. Quincy Ruffin. He writes a thing called explicit bias or implicit bias, where we all have a bias. Basically, we may not admit we have a bias, but we have to overcome those biases. If that's a good choice of words, to not allow ourselves to be in a certain, to judge someone in advance of what they do. And everybody does it. The key is, how do you check that bias? You have to know you do it and know not to do it. Just like if you go, I get in elevators and people will grab their purses automatically as if I'm going to mug them as I'm getting in the elevator. And I'm like, ma'am, I'm really not here to mug you. I'm just trying to go up to the 4th floor.
Wow.
And they don't realize that they've made that. They
subconsciously, yeah.
So good example. I was in Newport Beach a few weeks ago. I went to shoot a segment in Huntington Beach, and so we stopped off at a Trader Joe's, and this lady left her purse in the aisle to go grab something on the shelf. As I turned it, she looked up, saw me coming that direction. She literally ran to her shopping cart to grab her purse.
Wow.
I wish I could have recorded that, because it was like she did if there was a dash, if you got, credit for how fast you could run,
yeah,
she would have won the 100-yard dash in a few seconds flat.
Wow.
Goodness
And
gracious.
my better half, she also works in news business. She's like, wow, it's amazing. I drive my last car was in a crash, so I drive a Lexus, but I'm not a businessman driving a Lexus. I'm like, what do you do for a living? How can you afford that nice car? Like, okay.
Wow. You get asked these questions. That's
I
what
get
today.
hey, I've actually had someone ask me to valet their car one day. When I pulled up, they hand me their car keys and said, when you get done with that one, can you park mine?
Yeah, that I just would have smacked him.
You know what I wanted to do was take their car and drive it a few blocks and then
leave it there. Go find it, buddy. yeah. Make sure you wipe down the steering wheel you're done. Okay.
Oh my gosh.
I don't want any evidence.
I just learned to laugh at it. You have to laugh at it, because if you don't laugh at it, you'll go crazy.
Yeah.
They say humor is the best medicine. All right. So,
Definitely.
Yeah.
Hey, I want to ask you a question. I know I was looking at your website and some of the articles and things like that. I was catching a couple of your videos, and they're intense. I mean, it's almost like Geraldo or these guys that like do this like in your face type thing, right? And so like it's a 2-part question. Like, what is your biggest pet peeve in doing this? Because I know you've got to have one, because I've got one. Everybody has one. And then secondly is like how do you mentally put yourself in that situation to where it doesn't affect you? You know what I mean? Like I'll like, don't call me names. You know what I mean? You're like in their face, right?
Okay. So first of all, I have I was almost had a blank. My brain went blank for a second. Is that when I'm dealing with these stories, I try to keep. I put myself out there, like I just watch it and I observe it. But what I've learned, and one of my pet peeves that people do, is they will run 100 yards to stand in front of the camera and say to me, I don't want to be videotaped. I'm like, you do realize that if you stand in front of the camera, you will be videotaped.
You're being videotaped.
Or you don't have the right to videotape me in public. Or you're one person, I recorded their couch they left in the front lawn. They actually sent me an email saying that I was on private property. I'm like, do you realize if I can see it from the street, that's not public property?
Right.
And as it relates to the second part, when I try to do stories, doing this for so long, I've become, and I hate to say this, I've become kind of callous about it.
Yeah.
Callous to the point where I've seen it. I feel like that commercial. We've seen it. We've done it. Been there.
Yeah.
Farmers insurance.
Yeah.
But some stuff makes you laugh, because you go, "There's no way on earth somebody could be that stupid."
Yeah.
And then you put it on tape and you go, "They are that stupid."
Yeah. I find it amazing how, the balls of people to be able to just like go up and do that, the guts, you know what I mean? To, hey, you come here, Paul. I think it's probably something we've all, wish that we could do, right?
It's probably stupidity on my part, but you know what? It is what it is.
What's your biggest confrontation that you've had? Physical almost, huh?
Though I think the biggest one was a good point with the guy on the Golden Gate Bridge, which went viral. And he was on a motorcycle with a helmet. No, he had a helmet on, and he going the wrong way down the road, and he sees me videotaping him. He parks his car 50 yards away, runs across 2 lanes of traffic to tell me to get the camera out of his face. Now keep in mind, he had a helmet on, so you couldn't even see his face.
Yeah.
And when the police showed up, because apparently the Golden Gate Bridge saw everything going on, they called CHP. They showed up. Turns out the guy had expired driver's license, no registration, and no insurance. So he walked home.
Good for him.
Yeah. You got time for one more?
Oh yes, absolutely.
So another one was a case where, and I called him nickname Elmo Shirt Guy. If you Google it or look it up, you'll see it. This guy was in a carpool lane by himself in a BMW X3. The carpool lane in Sterling Street on-ramp required 3 passengers. He was in there by himself. he decides to change lanes to get away from the CHP officer. And I'm like, hey, look at him. He just changed lanes. So the CHP officer flagged him over. So instead of him saying, you know what, you got me, I messed up, my bad.
Right.
He decides to curse me out on camera, telling me he tried to fat shame me and say, hey,
yeah, that'll work.
1-800 chubby butt.
What?
And I don't want to be on camera. But then he didn't want to be on camera, as he kept saying on the video, don't put me on camera. Don't put me on camera. You don't have the right to put me on camera. And then 2 days later, he's on the radio, on TV, in front of a camera, talking about the whole event.
Hey, how about that free publicity?
Right? He doesn't want to be on camera because he did something wrong. That's why.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was bananas. And at that same time, 2020 flew me to New York to interview me about that whole event.
Wow.
Holy smokes. Wow, yeah. I remember the motorcycle incident. Like, I remember seeing that video, but the Elmo shirt guy, man.
I'll have to look that one up. I think we have to go to
yeah.
break. Are we going to break right yet?
Well, we got one more minute here.
Good.
But
And the motorcycle guy had the nerve to email me a year later to tell me to go do something to myself that if I could do it, I'd never leave the house.
Wow. Wow.
goodness gracious.
See, what you should have done is you should have come back and said, what do you want, 1-800 skinny butt?
1-800 chubby butt.
I'd be your chubby, you'd be my skinny.
Yeah. Well, apparently he got arrested a year later for snatching someone's purse and spent time for it. So.
Wow.
I'm sure these are upstanding, scaling type people that we have in our system.
Sure they were. I'm sure they were. I'm not one to pass judgment. I'm sure he was on his way to church and he was taking a shortcut and
just didn't want to be late.
Jesus told him to.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Absolutely.
That's right.
All righty. Well, we are at 30 minutes past the hour. We're going to continue the conversation here, but real quick, we got to do what we do best, get to local news. We're continuing the conversation on Flight 1080. And
What a conversation it is.
Absolutely.
I'm loving hearing about all the mishaps and stuff like that. That's hilarious.
Oh my gosh,
And
right?
how one deals with it. Welcome back, Stanley. How are you?
I'm
still there?
Good. Thank you very much. I'm still here. I haven't left yet. I'll be here all day.
We haven't chased you off yet?
Nope, not yet.
Okay.
And 831-479-1080, folks.
Yeah, let's get a question if anybody has a question for Stanley and his show that he has.
So I've got one here. What words of advice do you bring to broadcasters or those who work in live media out there, including myself?
Well, part of the thing about being a journalist is is not taking sides when it becomes to like politics and things going on.
Right.
We've kind of strayed away from that. A lot of us have.
How so?
We need to go back to that. And because if you watch some of the news broadcasts, I stopped watching them because one is too far to the left, one is too far to the right. And I need to know just the facts. I don't want to hear your spin of what you think this should be. I don't want to hear your spin of what you think it should be. I just want to know what happened and let me make my own decision.
Yeah.
Because once you start, you're not a journalist if you start adding. You're how they used to have the opinion columns in the newspaper.
Well, we were talking about that, Stanley. On the show many times. In fact, MZ, the owner of the station, we were talking about how journalism has been lost in that aspect, and that it's become more editorialized, right? So everybody wants to put their editorial into it, but nobody wants to just report the facts, And it's funny because when I first started this show, I've tried really hard to do that. I mean, everybody knows that I have my opinion and what side I'm on, but I really do try to listen to other sides, and I do try to look at other types of media so that I can get both sides of the story type things, and my son is super good at this stuff. But I find that I agree with you 100% that I think our listeners probably would agree with you also on that too.
I've been watching PBS lately, and I kind of like it because I've gotten away from the Fox, the CNNs, and just watch PBS because it's
Although
just like,
Chris Cuomo is kind of funny. Come on.
Well, he is very funny. He's funny as to be. I mean, I laughed at him because he took offense to the president having coronavirus and then leaving the hospital and then going on camera when he had coronavirus, left the house, was riding his bike all around.
Yeah.
So you can't criticize someone if you're doing the same thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Viva la hypocrisy.
That's my point on that one.
I agree with you 100%. I agree with you 100%.
I just inserted a wisecrack. That's all. Just viva la hypocrisy. But
it is what it is. You know, I mean, how do you fix it?
yeah, well, what about for all the other elements of live media? Like, for example, you talked about how you worked with trying to get your foot in the door somewhere and then also work on the editing process. So, like, what would you say was some of your challenges in that facet, like, that you could tell other broadcasters to avoid making the mistakes of?
Well, don't be afraid to make a mistake. Mistakes happen. But when you make a mistake, here's where people slip up at. They quickly blame someone else for their mistake. The key is take away the thunder from someone accusing you of something by saying, you know what? I made a mistake. It was my fault. I take full responsibility. I've made mistakes, and I've been dragged to the office, and they were telling me, what the heck was that? And the first thing I said was, you know what? You're right. That was my mistake. I apologize. I'll make sure it doesn't happen again. And I was sitting there looking like, what just happened? I was ready to chew him out.
And we have nothing further to talk about. Yeah, exactly.
I used to have an old joke in this business, and this was years ago, that it's always someone else's mistake. And people live by that rule. If something happens, they will refuse to accept responsibility for their actions. You got to accept it. If you messed up, just say, hey, I messed up.
Yeah. You know, I worked for attorneys, and that's how attorneys are, too. They don't want to hear your excuses. They just want you to know, say that I screwed up. My whole thing is I have a tendency to say, oh, God, I did it this way because blah, 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 blah. And I think people find that I'm doing that as an excuse, and it's not necessarily an excuse. What I'm doing is I'm telling you how I did it so that you can tell me how, if I did that wrong, then explain it to me, or that maybe next time I need to watch out for this, right? You know, it's not necessarily excuses.
Right. And the bad part about social media and the internet now is that if someone calls you out on something, a mistake you made, and you try to quantify that mistake, they say, oh, so now you're being defensive.
Right, exactly. You know, and I'm sorry, did you just want to call me out?
Yeah.
Do you not want me to explain myself? Then don't call me out.
So you're not allowed to explain yourself. You just have to be called out and say, so just, you know,
I have to listen to what you have to say, but nobody else.
Important to note, do not, as much as you want to, do not throw out your personal opinions on social media, because it will be dissected, trisected, and pushed back in your face.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Well, on that note, how do you manage the whole social media facets? Like, what do you say are some of the best pointers in that realm?
Well, I like to say meanwhile. That's one of my favorite ones. Meanwhile in XYZ. In other words, meanwhile in San Diego, and then I shut the video up and let you make your own decision. Or I'll put out a tweet that is, I'm not saying what you did. I say, look at what happened here. What do you think we should do, or what should happen next? And let people, you know, one of the things you have to do is engagement. And the way to engage people on social media is to don't just write a statement and walk away from it. Write a statement with a question mark at the end to let them come back and answer it. And if they answer it the way you don't like it answered, don't criticize them for their answer, because you just asked them for an answer.
Yeah.
So everyone knows you for people behaving badly, obviously. So tell us about the trials and tribulations of making such a franchise happen, and if possible, why it's no longer on the airwaves here.
Well, the trials and tribulations of creating a segment like that was two things. First of all, when I worked for Cron 4, I was never under contract with them. So there was never a set writing that said, hey, this is what you're going to do. I just kind of fell into it and started doing it, and it became very, very popular. It wasn't recognized as being popular with the station until about a year before I was about to leave. And then someone came and they go, wait a minute, this is popular. Let's do something with it. The hardest part is I had to turn a story every single day. So, and then when you turn a story every day, not every story is going to be out of the ballpark. Some stories are going to be like, what the heck was that? I'm like, you know what? You're right. But I had to turn something. I had to put something on the air.
Yeah.
And it was very stressful trying to put something on every day. It was so stressful that 5 years ago I had a stroke.
Oh my goodness.
And they couldn't determine what caused the stroke other than stress.
Yeah.
So the blood pressure was normal. My cholesterol was normal. It was just too much stress, and stress will kill you.
Yeah.
Goodness gracious.
And it makes your belly bigger too.
It makes your belly, yeah.
Just saying.
Hey, you must have seen my picture, huh?
No, you just didn't look at mine. It was like a personal facts there.
Stress tummy, yes.
Mine a big stress tummy.
So then what happened was, the Tribulation was, okay, I had this great franchise in the Bay Area that was moving along very well. And the station started I used to self-promote on a regular basis. because they didn't think it was worth promoting. Then the new guy came in a year before I left, and he was like, "Hey, we got to promote this guy," but I couldn't afford to live in the Bay Area because I wasn't making enough to make money.
Right.
I wasn't making enough money trying to support my 2 daughters and myself and live in the Bay. It was just too expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when I said, "Hey, I got a new job in Arizona," I mean, I've been offered a job in Arizona. I'll give you a chance. My agent said, "Just leave." I said, "No, I'm gonna be polite and say, look, here's a chance." So they said, "Well, give us some time to see if we can come back with a counter." And so their first counter was $7,000 additional for the whole year, which would have only paid my agent fees. It wouldn't have actually paid me any more money. I still would be making the same amount of money.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So when you do the math, it would have been the same amount. So then I said, "Well, it looks like I'm going to end up taking the job." And then all of a sudden, I get a phone call from my agent that says, "Hey, did you know they just trademarked the name People Behaving Badly?"
Oh.
And I go,
Snap.
"Wait, I couldn't trademark it when I tried. I was told that it was too common."
So,
And all of a sudden, so they said to me, "Well, I guess since we trademarked the name, I guess you can't leave, huh?"
they Zuckerberged you.
And so I said, "Well, the name doesn't make the segment. The segment, it's what I do. So I can change the name to something else." And I left. But what they did after that was just ridiculous. They actually called up YouTube because they told me to put the videos on YouTube. I had my own YouTube page. I had my personal videos of me and my daughter and stuff I've done, plus the videos. Close to 90,000 subscribers. I wake up one morning after I left and they were deleted. My entire account was closed.
Oh, no.
And YouTube never sent me a message saying, "Hey, we closed your account because of XYZ." It just got deleted. There was no messaging whatsoever.
Wow.
Normally, and just to give you an idea, if you have YouTube, if you violate something on YouTube,
Right.
they send you an email.
Right.
They say, "Hey, this video was flagged as being someone else's property." And then you can respond to it. That never happened. It was just deleted.
Right.
Boom. And so I was out cold. I got to the station, which I had to deal with to keep my YouTube page going. They said that now that that's not there anymore, we're going to put it on our page. And then we came up with a new name, which was Caught Misbehaving. And ironically, COVID, which has caused me to become unemployed. So, but the station let me keep the name Caught Misbehaving and the artwork. So they were nice enough to let me keep it. But right now I'm in that situation where I'm trying to start my own production company, and I'm trying to raise, crowdfunding to get this thing off the ground.
COVID-19 thing, that's kind of interesting. I would think that you would get some great videos on that. I think
Yes, except for my station, they're a little bit on the conservative side, if that's the right choice of word.
Yeah.
And their first thing was, "Well, we don't know if we want you pointing out people's bad habits during a
So I'm on a conservative station also. Look at me, I'm a left. Hey, we got a phone call, Curtis. Or Curtis. I have Curtis on the line. Stanley, we have a phone call.
Okay.
Stand by one.
Yeah, so here we go. Let's head to the phones. We've got David in Santa Cruz with a question for Stanley. Welcome aboard to Flight 1080, David.
Hey, David.
Thank you, guys. Hey, Stanley. Been a big fan of yours since
Hello.
you were out in the Bay Area. I had a quick question. I forget the bill exactly, but we all know it from being in California when they pretty much turned most of those misdemeanor crimes into cite releases. I was wondering,
Prop 47.
Yeah.
There it is. Yeah, Prop 47, the infamous one. I was wondering, did you notice any more action on your end from that, or a lot more crime, I guess, up in the Bay?
When Prop 47 was released, there were break-ins to automobile break-ins that just escalated beyond your wildest imagination. It was so many car break-ins that it was on the Presidio. If you go to Golden Gate Bridge, there are signs up now that says, "Do not leave things in your car will be broken into." Those signs were because I convinced Caltrans that they need to put signs up there, or the Golden Gate Bridge people, not Caltrans, that they need to put a sign there to tell people, because tourists were getting ripped blind. Also, it started an uptick in people stealing stuff out of Walgreens and CVS pharmacies. They were grabbing handfuls of stuff, and I posted video of it. It was a regular occurrence. So yes, I did see an uptick. And now they have Prop 20 coming out, which is supposed to dial back some of those rules that were made, free for everybody else, or free for all, basically.
Wow. Thanks for your call, David. Does that answer it?
Yeah, thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Anything else there?
No, just other than I worked in retail, so when that kind of I noticed a lot more shoplifting and a lot more kind of like what you were saying, the CVS and Walgreens. I worked at one of the Zoomy stores, and they had one in the San Francisco Center Mall, and they said that one would just get ripped off every single day. People would just run in, grab stacks of T-shirts ever since that bill passed. So I was just curious how it affected, if it gave you more content and everything up in the Greater Bay, because we don't see too much crime down here in Santa Cruz. It's a little bit more mellow compared to San Francisco, Oakland area.
Wow.
I never heard anyone. I remember what I'm looking for right now. It's funny that it got so bad that you always hear people say, why don't you stop them from shoplifting? But you can't stop them as an employee because you'll get fired.
Oh, yeah. And then if you put your hands on them, then they can sue you for assault or even get charged for assault, and you're going to get in more trouble than they are.
Well, legally, too. They can, if you're not doing it properly, I know back in the old days, if you didn't do it properly, you can do for not kidnapping, but for, holding the person, preventing them from continuing doing what they want to do. So
no good deed goes unpunished.
Right. I tell you, boy. Thanks for the call, David. That's really great.
Yeah, thank you so much, guys.
Thanks for joining, David.
So, Stanley, I have a question.
Don't be a stranger, my friend.
I have a question for you, Stanley. Did you watch the debates last night?
I did.
Okay, so I watched some commentary later on with Dee Lemon and Chris Cuomo on CNN. The two together, they're really funny. But one of the things that not only he but another black journalist, or I don't know what you want, a newscaster, had pointed out that they thought that Kamala, and the reason I'm bringing this up for you is, first of all, you're black. Secondly, you talked about racism, and I want to see how your opinion floats into this. They had talked about how Kamala had to basically not really go into the nitty gritty so much, or be really quote unquote assertive, because as women, when we get assertive, then we're bad.
Yes,
and the fact that she's right. So the fact that she's a black woman, and so it was like a double whammy for her, and they kind of felt like she had to hold back a little bit because of that. What's your opinion on that?
Well, what I got from watching the debate was that, and I actually pulled my phone out and started timing how far over the vice president went. And in some cases, he went 45 seconds past the 2-minute mark.
Yep.
And he wouldn't just end the conversation. He would start a new one within the time that he's supposed to be done.
Right.
Wow.
So, and then when she tried to speak, she was cut off. And she was trying to follow the rules by saying, okay, if you want me to stop, I'm going to try to stop. And a few times she went over 15 seconds.
Yeah, there was a couple times.
But you can't really speak if someone else is taking up all the time.
Right.
So it was kind of one-sided, the way I viewed it, the way I watched it.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of felt like, I don't know if you noticed with him, though, with women in general, like there was two women, right? So there's a woman moderator, and then there was Kamala Harris. And I'm just wondering if it's still the old, I like you, I didn't really do with racism, but like sexism and things like that. I dealt with that a lot. And I kind of feel like it just hasn't changed. It's like the old white man still there, and it's the 70-year-old, plus white man that's been doing this for years and years and years, and it's just not going away.
Well, it's funny, and this is a terrible joke, but I'm going to say it anyway. Remember when Obama was elected president, and before he was elected, someone said, and this was somebody told me, pigs will fly before a black man will ever be elected president, right?
Yeah.
And then guess what we had that same year? Swine flu.
Yeah. That is pretty funny.
Pigs fly, swine flu.
Well, I always said that they'll take a black man in the office before they'll take a woman, any woman. See, so that's kind of my opinion. Like we're still way back on the back burner. But I just was curious about what you thought about that, because I thought their analogy about being not only a woman but a black woman having to hold back further because of that.
I know her though. I used to cover her press conferences when I worked in
Kamala?
San Francisco.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
So she's not. She's definitely someone to be reckoned with. If she really were to cut loose, she would. They'd be writing about her in all kind of ways. She reminds me of my mom sometimes. Like, don't give me. You give that look. Throw the shoe around the corner.
Don't look at me like that,
Will. The shoe around the corner of the White House.
Yeah.
Hey, I haven't signed this bill. Boom. No, I'm not. I changed my mind.
So you want to continue into the next hour with us as well?
I would love to.
Excellent.
Before we continue in, why don't we send my Twitter address, so if people want to send me tweets while we're sitting here, I'm going to have my laptop up.
So
and it's Yes, it's Twitter. For those who follow me on Twitter, it's Stanley Roberts. That's all it is. Not the basketball player, just Stanley Roberts. And you can follow me on Twitter. I'm also on Facebook, but I'm not checking Facebook, and I'm also on Instagram.
Okay.
Instagram is also Stanley Roberts TV.
Okay. I'll put you on there right now on mine.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So I'm looking at it right now. I'm going to see these. I'm going to see my numbers. No, I'm just kidding. Did you see the thing last night where the fly got 100,000 followers overnight?
I'm sorry. I really shouldn't be laughing at this, but it was friggin' funny. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
You know what's even funnier?
I'm going to say this. What?
Real quick. Okay, so with regards to that, I never knew about the fly until well after, because I listened to the debate on the radio. The things you miss when you don't watch it on TV.
I'm telling you.
I actually didn't see the fly. I saw my Twitter go, what about that fly, right? And then all of a sudden, my better half, she goes, oh my God, he has 26,000 followers. And I go, it must be an old account. It must be an old account that he just pushed over and made. But then I looked at it, it was created 15 minutes before that. It was literally created when the fly landed on his head. And then the fly, I work my butt off every day to get followers.
Right.
And I'm at 15,000.
And a friggin' fly gets it.
Fly gets, you know what? That's why the world is coming to an end. You know, I'm waiting for the aliens to land, but, you know, they won't land here because there's no intelligent life here.
Absolutely not.
Talk to Ghost Adventures about that.
Yeah, so coming up in the next hour, we're going to continue the conversation. We're also going to learn more about what Caught Misbehaving is, and that and a whole lot more.
And if we can get the audience involved, 479-1080, maybe if you've seen his videos, then go ahead and give us a call and let us know what your favorite video is of Caught Misbehaving.
Absolutely.
Call in. Let's see what we got.
Or even, of course, from the People Behaving Badly archives. Can't forget about those. All righty, so we'll be right back. It's Flight 1080 on AM 1080 KSCO, Santa Cruz, Salinas, San Jose, Monterey. Sorry, caller who thought this was boring. I don't care. I really don't. Anyway,
someone called and said it was boring?
Yeah, well, right at the beginning, but, you know, I don't care because I've got my other friends telling me, man, this is awesome because, like, we literally grew up with you here. So that's.
We always got somebody. There's always going to be one in the crowd.
There's always somebody.
Always one. Yep.
So, let's get right into the nitty gritty here. So tell us about your newest project, your own Caught Misbehaving series.
So my newest project is Caught Misbehaving with Stanley Roberts. And it doesn't ring like People Behaving Badly, but it's there. And you like to take the G off, but I'm a G, so I got to keep the G on.
That's the spirit.
And basically, I want to do the same thing I've been doing before, except in this case, we're going to hit major cities, preferably around the U.S. Of course, I would love to come back to Santa Cruz.
Oh, yeah, we'd love to have you.
I love Santa Cruz. Yeah, great stuff there. Las Vegas, all different cities. I like to hit them. But those things cost money. Mm-hmm. So, to create and do this and do it the way I want it to be done, I want to hire some writers, some producers, and some editors. It takes money. So I created a GoFundMe, which was trying to get people to help me crowdfund this. And that's where I'm at right now, trying to build up enough money so that I can do this full time and give people the content that they want.
Right.
I got a couple of writers that I know probably do it real cheap for you.
So, tell us more about that whole process there. Like, do you foresee yourself having a whole team? Do you see it being community driven? What do you feel this will go in? What direction?
Yes, to all of them. I do see it being a team. I also see it being community driven. Now, to give you an idea why I'm even trying to do this, it's not something I just woke up one morning and goes, you know what, let's do this all over the country. I've actually gotten emails from all over the country. And there's a gentleman, and not just the country. I've had them from Sweden, Ireland,
wow,
London, Hong Kong, and they're saying, hey, can you come do this here? Now, I'm like, I would love to, but that doesn't, hotels, flights, rental cars, that stuff costs money. It's not cheap at all. Mm-hmm. And so I'm trying to build something up, and it's coming together. I wish it would come together faster, but I hope that by the time we go post-COVID, that I can be out there full force and we're hitting the streets and bringing some content that people want to see that is not politically based. We don't do it politics. It's strictly human nature and what the heck's going on and where you live at.
And you're certainly right about that. Like earlier when you mentioned the whole, you don't tell these people not to do the bad things or misbehaving acts in which they're doing, but yeah, you just literally put out the stipulations for doing those actions. And I never thought of it as that. And it really goes to show that you put a lot of effort into ridding the bias.
He doesn't really have to, because there are people out there that misbehave on a regular basis. You know, like, right? I mean,
it reminds me of a story that I was talking to a lieutenant from East Palo Alto Police Department. He called me one day and he said, "Hey, Stanley, we got a problem at a certain intersection. Would you mind coming out and showing how bad the problem is?" And I said, "You know what?" I said, "I would love to, except for I'm booked solid for the next 30 days. And he says, "What state of affairs is it that the man whose job it is to find bad behavior is booked 30 days in advance?" I never thought of it like that.
Yeah.
But yes, I literally had so many emails of, "Can you do this?" I mean, some of the emails were, "Hey, my baby daddy won't pay his child support." Well, I don't do baby daddy stories.
Right.
So, that sounds like a whole lot of baby mama drama.
You know, or my neighbor is cheating the welfare system because she owns a house. I'm like, well, what was this? Go knock on the door and say, "Hey, let me see your check."
okay, what about the guy having the affair? Have you done that one?
The guy having the affair.
Yeah.
No,
you know, the husband having an affair on his wife. Never got
loves of the heart. No, I'm not a private investigator. I don't mess with that stuff. 'Cause that's that's the kind of stuff that gets you shot.
Right.
So you mentioned the whole having your own GoFundMe. So I heard that you had an imposter. So tell us about that.
So we had an imposter, and I say we because I never like to speak as even though it's just me, I say we because my 3 different personalities.
Me, myself, and I.
Me, myself, and I.
That's right.
So one of my famous favorite followers, her name was Nicole Reels, and she lives in Payson. Now, funny thing is, let me go backwards for a minute. Her mother-in-law, and I'm at a restaurant in Payson eating back in November of last year. And I hear, "Wait, is that Stanley Roberts?" And I'm like in the middle of Arizona, out in the middle of nowhere, and they take a picture with me. Well, then one day I wake up a couple weeks ago, and I get all these emails saying, "Hey, you're giving away $5,000?" And I go, "No, I'm trying to make money. I'm not trying to give it away." Well, apparently someone created a duplicate page. And if you go to youtube.com, Stanley Roberts, the video is there. And it shows how. So what they did was she was a model, and she saw the email as well, the duplicate page. She thought it was me. She actually had a conversation with the person thinking she was talking to me, and gave up her personal information to win $5,000.
Wow.
She didn't figure out it wasn't me until she saw this tweet from me from Instagram post going, "Hey, there's someone pretending to be me. Do not give them your money. Do not give them anything." Well, it was too late. She had already done it, and I'm sure other people have done it too. They just haven't come forward.
You know, that's the problem with these stupid GoFundMes. You just don't know. Like, we had that horrible fire here, right? And so there was so many different GoFundMes, and people were like, "Where do I go? Where do I, who should I really give to?" And some of these that I saw were getting like thousands and thousands of dollars, and they were just, some regular person that, you didn't know for sure. I hate to say it, but exactly what you're talking about. There's people out there that do that, and it really pisses me off.
And I really felt weird about asking people to help me fund the company.
Yeah.
But, when times are rough, you think of ways to do things.
Now, my son did his, because he does producing and stuff like that, and he started a couple of his projects on Kickstarter, because I think that was a better crowdsourcing. I don't know if anybody has any. Yeah,
I looked at Kickstarter, and the only reason why I didn't go that direction was because if you don't get the money you asked for, they give it all back. So, I hate failure. And I didn't want to be like, "I need."
Start
and
small.
They go, "Nope, sorry." Start small.
Start small. $1,000.
One day at a time. One day at a time. Well, and some people have donated. I've made right now. They've donated up to about $11,000. One person, a dry cleaner in Walnut Creek, They donated $1,000.
No, that's
Some
nice.
people donated $5. Some people donated $100.
Yeah, every little bit
Some people
helps.
donated 250. Yes, every little bit helps. But even with all that, it's still just the equipment is very expensive.
Yeah.
You know, I don't have a rental car or SUV to move around with. I have everything I needed to do the story now, like I did when I worked for TV, except for a way to get around, where I'm not using my old car and saying, you know, let me drive here and this is this XYZ, and then all of a sudden my car is trashed.
Yeah,
I'm not covered for that.
I was about to say, you're not in, being in Arizona, I couldn't peg you for not having a car, given like how sporadic I imagine public transit availability is there.
Yeah, but can you imagine trying to carry a tripod, a camera, and
exactly.
a bunch
all
of stuff
that.
on a bus?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
goodness gracious.
Well, if you're ever out here, let me know. My son has some equipment. You can borrow his.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah.
My only thing I need now is mostly like a rental, like a SUV
Yeah.
that I can use on a regular basis. And
Yeah.
I'm trying to work out, I was trying to reach out to Enterprise because I use them quite a bit to see if they'd sponsor maybe.
Right, exactly.
But they never reached out back, so I don't,
Yeah, they're in the business of selling off their rental fleet right now because, they're not getting as many sales thanks to COVID. So tell us, what is your favorite memory with your career or in general?
My favorite memory will always be the time when I was doing a story in Oakland about illegal dumping, and I ran into a gentleman who went by the name of Marcus Malone. He was digging through garbage, and I don't normally talk to people when I'm shooting like that. I just shoot the video and move on. But I started to ask him questions, and it turns out that he was a former band member for Santana that fell on hard times.
Wow.
And he went to prison. And turns out that Santana had been looking for this gentleman. And when he saw the story, I put him in the story for the illegal dumping and saying that he used to work for the Santana, he called it Santana Blues Band. And I never heard it called that way. I just heard of Santana.
Mm-hmm.
Those two were reunited just before Christmas,
Yeah.
a few years back. And that was a highlight of me seeing that these two were together. And people wanted me to keep staying on the story, but my function was about bad behavior. They were reunited, that's fine, but I needed to move on, and there are other people that have other issues.
Right.
One of the things I try to do is go into cities and find problems and then try to get the city to come together and fix the problem. If it's, traffic related or illegal dumping related or something that affects a neighborhood or a community, I'm going to go in there and show, hey, this is a problem. This is what people think about the problem. Now, how do we fix the problem?
Right.
And
So I have a quick question.
Yeah, what you got?
So when you're filming these things, you're watching these people do whatever, bad things, whatever you want to call them, illegal things. What goes through your mind? Like when you're filming, you're standing there and all of a sudden there's this guy and you're like, what goes through your mind?
Well, I'll tell you what goes through my mind. Now, here's a good example. I'm glad you asked that question. I once was in Oakland, and I saw a guy dumping a bunch of debris out the back of a truck.
Goodness.
Now, I could just stand there and record it and just say, look at him dump stuff in the truck. But I pulled up on him, and I said, what the heck are you doing? And he said, my boss told me to do this. He said, your boss told you to dump this stuff out in the middle of the street on a residential neighborhood. And then the guy took off in his truck. And, I wish, like some people used to say, they're not afraid of the police. They're not afraid of the police. They're afraid of me, because with the police, you get a ticket and you go about your business. But with me, you end up on the internet forever.
Certainly. And I hold a whole soft spot to that because we have such a beautiful area here in Santa Cruz that we call home, and seeing the dumping is ridiculous. I always gripe to myself every time I'm driving over the hill to San Jose. It's the moment I hit Santa Clara County, there's a couch on the side of the road.
Well, we have some of that here too, called the homeless people. But one of the things that God, I kind of lost my train of thought there. Going back to, I know, right? It's because I'm getting old. One of the things that I've noticed is that, and I've always been this way. I've been in the law field for umpteen millions of years, and I've always tried to take pride in to try to follow the law, for the most part. There's probably times that I have inadvertently, broke the law. Like maybe I did a little jaywalking once in a while. But for the most part, I really do. I really try to do that. And that's not trying to play the Saint Kamala type thing. You know, it's just how I believe. You know, like you watching other people break the law. I kind of feel like, you know, it's not right. Right? It's just not right.
Let me ask you a question.
What you got?
What's the definition of jaywalking?
Well, to me, it would be going against a red light, or it would be going against going across the street without the crosswalk.
Okay.
But that's the old days. They probably have changed
Incorrect.
it. Okay.
So if you walk against a light, that's a failure to obey a traffic signal.
Right.
It's not jaywalking. That's completely different,
Okay.
whole different site. Now, it's a jaywalk. You have to cross in an intersection, in a street that has two controlled intersections. So if you're on the street and there is a light here and a light at the other end, and you cross in between those two lights, that is jaywalking.
So the same thing that I just said, but you're talking about if I'm on the corner and I look at the light and it's red and I cross it and there's another light behind me, that's not jaywalking?
No, that's called ignoring.
Right, the light.
Yeah, it's a signal. So that's a different citation, different law. It's not jaywalking at all. People think that jaywalking is anytime you cross the street without, just crossing nilly-willy. And you're right. There is some things where you cross the street and you don't yield to pedestrians or drivers. If you're crossing the street and not at a crosswalk, it's your responsibility to yield to oncoming traffic. Unfortunately, in California, people think that the driver always has the right of way. That is not true.
Right.
The driver has the right of way. If the absence of a crosswalk. Now, here's where it gets kind of tricky. So there's such thing as a marked crosswalk and an unmarked crosswalk. Mm-hmm. And people argue with me all the time. So any T crossing or crossing, whether it's marked or not, is considered a crosswalk.
Okay, so I'm looking at one
sense?
thing. I'm looking at something from Wikipedia that says jaywalking occurs when a pedestrian walks in or crosses a roadway that has traffic other than at a suitable crossing point or otherwise in disregard of traffic rules.
That's the letter of the law. That's the spirit of the law. Okay. The letter of the law is if you read the actual law and not Wikipedia, because Wikipedia is written by someone who decides, I'm going to put this on Wikipedia, and they approve it.
That was just a quick one that came up with, yeah.
Right. I actually had to read the vehicle code.
Yeah.
Like, here's another question for you. What constitutes running a red light?
Either, I would say just running across it, like just without a single stop whatsoever. Just rolling right through the stop.
Yes, technically that is one way of running a red light. But if your wheels are already past the limit line when the light turns yellow before it turns red, then that's technically not running a red light.
Right.
It's dangerous, but it's not actually.
You have to be over halfway over, yeah.
You have to have your front wheels past the limit line, which is the very first line of the crosswalk.
Yep.
Is that not hit? Did you get a commercial?
No, that was.
He likes to play with buttons on a regular basis.
No, basically, I forgot.
He's like a little kid,
I forgot to turn down the town hall news, and it's a favorite blooper that is across the station. I'm not the only one who does it, thankfully.
But I think we have to break for David Corsi, right?
Yeah, welcome back
song.
To Flight 1080. We're continuing the conversation. We got Josh Stevens here, Cami Corwin over there,
here,
Stanley Roberts way across there, and how about you, 831-479-1080.
So I guess we just have a couple more questions for Mr. Stanley.
We sure do, and we've actually got a caller. You want to take the call?
Yeah, let's do it.
Alrighty, so we've got Birdman and Big Sur, and he says he was featured on People Behaving Badly.
Uh-oh.
No. It was a positive experience. Stanley, I don't know if you remember me. You might. We were actually a couple encounters. I used to bike around San Francisco with a little parrot on my shoulder. And one time I was coming down the Wiggle, and you were doing the bicyclists don't stop at the stop signs there on the Wiggle. And here I come down, and I got my little parrot on my shoulder, and I did the little track stand stop, where your tires completely stop, but you don't put your feet down. And I took the right-hand turn. No, you didn't ask. You didn't ask me. The cop pulls me over, and you go, no. He stopped. He didn't put his foot down, but he stopped, looked both ways, and made the right-hand turn. And I want to let you know, man, I had a bag full of dope that day, and you saved me from a charge. I mean, big time. I couldn't believe it. I said, man, I'm out of here. I got this delivery. So I just thank you so much. I saw myself on TV. I told everybody, I said, you see that backpack? It's full of weed. Stanley was like, go, go, go. So thank you.
So wait, you had a bag full of weed.
Stanley, you're in trouble now.
I let you go, huh?
I had about a half a pound of weed in my backpack.
Jesus, Mary and Joseph.
I made the stop, right? And then the cop was like, hey, pull over. You didn't stop at the stop sign. I'm thinking, oh, man, I'm going to catch a charge. My poor little parrot's going to be at the animal rescue. You know what I mean? And you were like, no, man, he stopped. And the cop believed you because you were Stanley Roberts. You know, I was people behaving properly, and it worked out great. So I just want to thank you. We miss you in the Bay Area, bro. And much love.
Hey,
Well,
Birdman.
you did stop.
Hey, Birdman, I think you owe him quite a few money on his GoFundMe page right now.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, dude. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I'm saying, hit me some of that weed money, man. Come on.
Hey, the weed money's over, bro. It went all.
Hook a brother up.
The money's out of the weed. It's an $8 an hour job now. Come on, man.
Oh man. And San Francisco,
Have a good-
$8 an hour. I find that hard to believe.
No, I'm just saying the trimmers. You know, come on. It's all illegal trimmers now. It's all corporate, bro. Everything's sold out.
Yeah.
There's no money
All right.
in it anymore. Don't believe anybody says there is. Later.
See you, Birdman.
All right, later.
Oh my God, Stanley, that's too friggin' funny. I'm
And
sorry.
No wonder
Wow.
why his name was Birdman, because he got the parrot.
That reminds me of a funny story. I was riding with the CHP, and he almost ran a red light. And I said, red light. And he slammed on the brakes, and he says, woo, man, thank you. I'm like, yeah, that would look bad. You run the red light, right? I mean, everybody makes mistakes. And I said, okay, I'll tell you what. Since I saved you from running red light, I get to pick the next person that gets let go without a ticket. He goes, okay, fair enough. So, we were riding around writing tickets all day. And this one guy, like, okay, let me invoke my right to let somebody go. And the one guy I let go, turned out this guy had so many problems. I was like, oh, man, I picked the wrong dude to kick loose today.
Oh my!
That's
It was
hilarious.
funny.
That is hilarious.
So tell us, who or what drives your inspiration?
Birdman, obviously.
Oh, clearly Birdman.
I want to be
What or
surprised
who-
if his first name was Harvey.
That's hilarious. So what drives my inspiration? Well, I guess my inspiration, I can't really rely on my inspiration on somebody who I want to be like. Because I think it's just something that was in my head, and I go, you know what, I'm going to do this. And I hope it inspires other people to do something. And people have been trying to do what I do, but I know how to make the soup, but I don't give you the ingredients. And people try to do it and they get it wrong. My goal with the new show is to create a franchise, hopefully out, where I can teach people to do the same thing. So I want to train people to do what I do and teach them. And funny part is Santa Cruz, UC Santa Cruz used to have a curriculum that was based on my show.
Really?
Yep. I ran into one of the instructors one day, and he told me he was the chief police for, I think, Santa Cruz University Police Department.
Wow.
And he told me, Adam thing we have a curriculum that is based on what you do. Teach people how to, this and that. And I'm like, that's really cool.
And like,
Really cool.
as a way to also, if this were to kick off in the franchise model, it would be a great way to spread accountability, wouldn't you say?
Yes.
Is that
It would be
really
accountability.
is that your
Right.
main? Besides it being something that's great for television, is that your main goal?
Oh, thank you. My main goal is to hold people accountable for their actions.
Right.
Right now, there is not a lot of people that will take accountability for things that go wrong, and it's not just the people on the street, but city workers. Remember, there was a worker called Amy Wang. Remember this story? She worked for the tax department for San Francisco. She joined the carpool thing, and turns out that she never had anybody in her car. And so I followed her for 3 days to prove that she had no one in the car with her. And then I confronted her, and she said, oh, yeah, I pick up everybody. I go, well, no, the only person you picked up was your mom. Take her to the doctor. Her mouth dropped. And then she said, everybody else is doing it. I said, well, who's everybody else?
Oh.
Then she pleaded the fifth.
Yeah.
Oh. Well,
like,
My
you
mother
already
would say,
incriminated
if your friend jumps off the Golden Gate Bridge, are you going to jump off too? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What do you say to people when they come to you and they say, who made you, like judge and jury, who made you the person to hold people accountable?
That's just it. I'm not judge or jury. I'm an observer who looks at what you do, and then I'm a mirror on society, basically. I put a mirror up with my camera and show you what's going on. Now, it's up to you to make a decision. Now, if you want to consider me judge or a jury, then maybe you have bigger issues that I don't know about.
Now, when it comes to, I got to commend you on this one real quick, but I like that when you did this series in the Bay Area, you were multimodal. Like, you went to showcase the people that are on bikes, that are on foot, that are on transit and driving. You didn't discriminate the mode. You showed it in the act of all these different things, all these different ways in which people are caught misbehaving. And I think that's amazing. Also, to just give more airtime to public transit, because, I think
That's what you like to do.
Well, yeah, that, and
Phone call.
it's an option for people.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because my biggest problem I've ever had was if I did a story on bicycles, they would complain that I never did a story on cars.
Right. So is
I
that
did a story on cars, they would complain I never did stories on bicycles.
So is pretty much all your stories going to be based on those, some type of mode of operandi?
No. My stories are based on, for example, I did a story on the fraud with the Facebook when they created the page like mine.
Okay.
So that was, I try to do everything. I did a story about disabled. One of the biggest things I like to do is target people who abuse disabled placards.
Yeah.
That is a big pet peeve of mine. It's like, someone's disabled. It's not a parking space to go drop your mail off.
Right.
That spot is for disabled people.
Right.
My whole function is just to try to, I'm not here to correct the rights or wrongs. I'm here to show you what's right and what's wrong. And then it's up to you to make the decision. Now, I said for every action, there's a reaction. The action is what you do. The reaction is what happens after you do it. Now, it may not happen to you, but think of it this way. If I'm able to catch, most of my stories in the Bay Area were shot in 4 hours.
That's a quick turnaround time.
Yeah, it is.
Do the math. If you can find that much bad behavior in 4 hours, there's a problem.
Yeah.
It gives Florida man a real run for his money, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, Florida man. If I went to Florida man, Florida is out of control.
I know what I wanted to ask you.
You would run out of memory storage on your camera.
Yep.
I wanted to ask you all about the Karen phenomenon.
I'm glad you asked me that, because someone actually mentioned to me one day, you're the reason why we have Karen. I'm like, no. And,
Karen's the reason why we have Karen.
Karen, thank you. Karen, it's one thing to say, hey, you're doing something wrong. But it's different to say you're doing something wrong when you're actually the one doing something wrong. I've had people say to me, hey, who's behaving badly? And I go, well, actually, you are, because right now you're parked in a handicap spot and you don't look disabled. I can't say you don't look disabled. That's the wrong way to say it.
Right.
But where's your placard? Oh, well, I don't have one. It's at my grandma's house. Well, it needs to be in the car with you.
It's at the dry cleaners.
Yeah. Darn it, I left it in my pocket in my purse in the other house. I think we have a couple phone calls.
Yeah.
We sure do. Hitting the phones, we've got Mike and Capitola on accountability. Welcome aboard to Flight 1080, Mike.
Hey, Mike.
How you doing?
Good. How are you, honey?
Oh, hanging in there like everybody.
Right.
And I just want to, the fellow you're interviewing there, I just came in kind of about half an hour ago listening. I want to commend him on what he's doing. And while I was on the phone waiting, I heard you talking about people abusing handicap placards. Yeah, that bugs the heck out of me, too. And so it sounds to me like what you're working on is a similar idea of that, I guess, TV show or YouTube thing of where this guy goes around catching Johns, picking up hookers. Do you know that show I'm speaking of?
Yeah, he got charged for picking up a hooker, didn't he?
No, this is a guy that, I forget the exact name of his show, but what he does is he goes around and he catches Johns picking up hookers in different cities that shouldn't be doing that, and then the hookers, it makes the
Can we use a better word, please?
Prostitute.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's all right, Mike. I don't find that word to be too offensive, but maybe I have a problem with it.
And I see what you mean. So, but in a nutshell, I appreciate what you're doing in relation to all these other categories, like with the handicap placards and people being held accountable for things that they're doing wrong, you know, and like with these police officers that go too far and they're on a power trip and they treat people the wrong way when they shouldn't, you know, and things like that. So I think that's great that you're doing this.
Excellent.
Well, thank you.
We appreciate it, Mike.
Thanks,
now,
Mike.
I've just come in the last 15 minutes on this. Do you have like a YouTube channel or something that I could look onto and listen and look at what you're doing?
Yes, you can. Well, Google Stanley Roberts, and you can find stuff there. But my YouTube page is youtube.com/Stanley Roberts. And if you also go to my GoFundMe, you can look it up and it reads more information about what I'm trying to do. And, you know, if you want to participate, you are welcome to participate in the GoFundMe.
Okay, so it's Stanley Roberts?
Yes.
Okay.
Common spelling, not the basketball player. He's 7'4". I'm 5'11".
Okay.
No way. I'm also
Although I get his
5'11".
mail all the time.
So, you were talking a little earlier about that somebody else had a name for what people don't do, and then you were trying to do it, so you had to change yours a little bit or something?
Yes.
So what is the actual name of your show now?
Caught Misbehaving. CAUGHT Misbehaving. Caught.
Caught.
Like I caught you,
Misbehaving.
or I caught a fish.
Right. Okay, I just wrote that down. Caught Misbehaving, and you're Stanley Roberts.
You got it,
Right.
Mike.
All right. Well, I'll look into that,
Thanks much for your call.
and you take care, and keep up the good work.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right. Take care now.
And one more for the phones. We got Judy in Live Oak. Welcome aboard to Flight 1080.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Judy.
So, Roberts, I love what you're doing. Hi, Cass. Cass. You remind me of my sociology professor at San Diego State College many decades ago who used to ride in a cop car, you know, with a cop car. So I just wonder, how do you find the misbehaving people? Where do you go? I mean, how do you set it up? And I'm glad that guy called before because we're clarifying all the details. I guess I'm not a TV watcher, so I have an internet, and I can check that out on internet when I can. But it sounds great. Good luck to you. Bless you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Judy.
you. Thank you very much.
Judy's a regular caller.
Thank you. To answer your question, some people call me a poop magnet. They have another word, a little more stronger, but it's radio, so we can't say it. Things seem to happen right in front of me sometimes. I mean, I used to make a joke. My joke was that one time I said, I wish I could find a bag of money, right? And then I look on the ground, there's a bag of money. Okay, it wasn't a bag of money, it was a bag with money printed on the outside of it. So I was like, I guess I have to be more specific. I need a bag with money in it.
Right? Thanks for your call,
weird.
Judy.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you. It's weird that people tend to just fall on the floor and start behaving badly or start misbehaving right in front of me.
Why do you
And,
think that is?
You know, I don't know.
Why do you think people in general want to misbehave?
I think people just like to buck the system as a whole.
Is that what it is?
They want to say, look what I did. I got away with it. It's been, I mean, but
The
look,
cheap
okay.
adrenaline rush.
I'm gonna put this out here right now, and I'm gonna get a lot of backlash from it, but I want to say it. Our government, past, present, and future, have misbehaved for years.
Oh, yeah.
And so people are like, well, why should I follow the rules when they don't follow the rules?
See, that's what I feel.
So
exactly.
So if we don't, if our politicians, local, state, federal, don't follow the rules, how can we expect
our people.
the public to follow the rules? You know, that is, it's a fact. And I wish that we had more politicians that were by the book and just do it the right way. But unfortunately, we have, some people like to skirt corners.
Yeah. I think
And some people learn from that.
I think their intentions are, good when they first get in, but then they get caught up in that whole political BS, right? And it's just, and it makes them go to the worst side. You know what they say is like, it just takes that one time. Like I've been in the law and the judges and things like that, right? It just takes that one time that you say, okay, I'm gonna play games on this one. I'm gonna let this one go. I'm not gonna do what I really should be doing, right? I'm not gonna look at it at an unbiased side. It just takes that one time, and then you don't get caught, and then it's just easy to keep doing it over and over and over again. right?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. I guess you hear my clock going off, right?
Yeah, is that the cuckoo thing I hear in the background?
Yeah.
I didn't even notice.
Is it cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs?
Yes. So I understand we're running out of time. I know you
Yes,
guys are
we
off
are.
at 7. So I want to make sure I mention I'm on Twitter
Right.
at Stanley Roberts.
I just got you.
Right. I saw you send me the follow, so
And
thank you.
You got me back.
Instagram on Stanley Roberts TV. Facebook, Stanley Roberts News. And I don't know what else. I'm on TikTok, but I'm still trying to figure that one out.
Oh, geez.
You know, some people on TikTok have like 1 trillion followers. And I've done some great content on TikTok, and it's like crickets.
Nah, I don't. I have a hard enough time with IG, Twitter, and my Facebook.
I'm guessing you have to work your way with throwing in a bunch of hashtags and stuff so people could find you. I imagine that's how all the up and rising social media platforms work. Speaking of which, kudos for trying to man TikTok, because I haven't even dared bother touching that one. And what about a personal website of yours?
So right now, we're working on caughtmisbehaving.com. But if you really want to pitch in and help, go to GoFundMe and look up Help Launch Caught Misbehaving Franchise. And, we're trying to raise $300,000, but I doubt that's going to ever happen. But if you can, help out any way you can, that's great. But I want to say something real quick.
What you got?
Whenever I'm in the Bay, whenever I'm in Santa Cruz area, and I'm kind of sad right now because they're closed, I normally stay at the Portola Plaza Hotel. Portola Inn and Hotel and Spa. And then my best friend is the executive sous chef, Carl Ashurst. Great food. I love it there, and I miss it. I can't go there right now. I really wish I could be there and stay in the hotel. I love it. That was my getaway spot until people figured it out, and then they show up. Hey, aren't you Stanley Roberts?
Well, listen, the next time you come into town, you call us and you let me know, and I'll make sure you get you taken care of somehow, some way.
Well, I appreciate it. I do miss Santa. I love Santa Cruz, beach and boardwalk, all the good food,
with all the treats and the eats.
All the treats.
Well, it's been a pleasure having you, Stanley.
It was a pleasure. I really enjoyed it. 2 hours. Yeah.
I know. We're pretty funny. Actually, I'm pretty funny.
Yeah,
Josh,
you are.
Josh just kind of hangs out.
Yep.
Let's do this again sometime.
Yes, definitely so. I appreciate
Absolutely.
it. And for all the listeners out there, if you want to get a hold of Stanley, you can get a hold of, if you didn't get his information, Cami at KSCO.com, Josh at KSCO.com. If you didn't like the show, Josh at KSCO.com. If you liked it, Cami at KSCO.com. We look forward to having you again some other time, Stanley. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too. And for those of you who just tuned in, you can find him at youtube.com/StanleyRoberts.